Hey and welcome. Here is Alex from Black Sheep IT Consulting, and today we're going to have a quick look at the message broadcasts feature and maybe a bit on customizing it. So as far as we see here, we are in the administration communications screen. There's a message broadcasts view, and we can create messages here as an administrator manually, or you can imagine any other means like a business service. There's even a standard business services, I think, in life sciences. And you can imagine a REST call, whatever, creating these records. And these records consists of a severity from normal, high to urgent, and urgent with alert. A little bit more on that later. And an abstract, which is like a header text, and an activation date, expiration date, so when they are available, and a message. And I picked one of the sample database here because that is showing that the message can be HTML, not just plain text. You can address the message broadcast to a list of positions, a list of divisions, or even a list of users, or simply mark it as all users. It has to be marked as broadcast, so it's visible in the broadcast. Now you see the icon already blinking on my toolbar. So there's the notification icon. In the very old world of high interactivity, this was the famous ticker on the bottom of the screen. This is no more in OpenUI. In OpenUI, this is just a button showing the number of messages for the current user. And these messages are reloaded every 2 minutes by default. There's a user preference. Let's quickly go there. So you can go to message broadcasting, user preferences. Well, the scroll speed doesn't matter anymore, really. The mouse over, I don't know, but the update interval and the maximum message count, which has been recently added, like, can't remember really, Siebel 21, 22 something. And the update interval is 2 minutes by default. So every 2 minutes, a business service is invoked to fetch the messages. And if there are any new messages, this is updated. So, okay, let's go back to, so this is the standard behavior we are looking at. And of course, when I click the icon, I get a box with all the messages. I have not read any of these messages. So you can see there's one very urgent message. So that's why the icon is actually blinking. If you have more than one or more messages with a severity of urgent with alert, the icon starts blinking. Okay, that's nice. So there's at least one very urgent message. There's no alert, however, in OpenUI. Okay. We'll see maybe if we can change that later through customization. But let's see the default behavior here. So we can mark all as read, which is like, okay, get rid of all the messages. I'm not interested, but okay, we are diligent users. Messages can be marked with a dismissible flag, so the users can dismiss them, so they never see them again, unless an administrator undismisses them or something. And let's start with this one, calls in queue. So there's a little bit of HTML here, a little bit of formatting, calls in queue, 23 current calls in queue. Okay, I read the message. If I close that, you see the message count goes down to 5 immediately. Now the message is in the previously read section. I can dismiss this one, so it goes away. So still 5 messages to read. If I read the very urgent message, it stops blinking because there's no more urgent with alert message here. So, okay. And if I expand that big HTML message, I see that any HTML that you pass in and into the message body is really rendered so you can have links and stuff and videos and whatever. Wow. Okay. HTML at our disposal. Okay. Let's close this one more. So I have 2 read messages, 3 still unread. Okay, so as an administrator, I can go back to a message and I can set this as unread the urgent with alert message I set as unread. Nothing happens right now. We have to wait for at most 2 minutes for the refresh to kick in. Or we can simply, if we want to test it, simply refresh the page. This will kick off the JavaScript. And as you can see, there's the blinking icon again. There's a very urgent message waiting for you. You have to click once and twice to really read and consume that message. So now let's spice things up a little bit. First of all, let's use the browser developer tab to see what's going on in the background here of this blinking. I'm very interested in the urgent with alert, how it works. And it seems to be very odd. I expected some kind of CSS animation, but this is like in every 1 second or so the class is updated. So there is a message blink style class added, and that class results in actually very hard to see, but you can find it in the CSS. It adds an opacity change. Here we see it so the opacity changes, so that's the blinking effect. So changing the class through JavaScript every 1 second back and forth, like toggling. Okay, that is a blinking effect for sure. Well, we want something more, let's say, modern, maybe with pure CSS. So we're going to override this. And the override, I do something very simple to be able to test that quickly. And you shouldn't try this at home, really, is I'm overriding the Aurora theme file or any of the loaded style sheets. And here's where your custom style sheet should be. But I'm, let's say, overriding the Aurora. So going to the end of the Aurora style sheet in the browser and then just adding CSS code here temporarily, of course. It should, and this is the CSS code that should really go in your custom style sheet. So let's see how can we disable the blinking first. So here blinks no more because I have, well, reached out to that class and set the opacity to 1, important, overriding any prior settings. So it's the opacity, even if the class is now applied, the opacity does not change. It's kept at 1. And so let's see what happens if we set that to 0, for example. Gets an even harder blink effect. So we can play around with this. This is the standard blink effect, and well, we can of course change it, right? Okay, but let's agree on disabling it because we have something else in mind. Now, the urgent with alert, the colors, you can of course find the class. I found that when you look at urgent and urgent with alert, it's actually the same class. So that is the highest priority, uses the same class. It just doesn't blink. So you can't go with the urgent class because there's still urgent and urgent with alert. I found out that there is an ARIA label. I know it's blinking, but it's annoying, but the ARIA label includes urgent with alert. Okay, so the trick is, let's create an CSS to override any element with urgent with alert. Okay, and it's yellow because I choose the color to be yellow. It's not blinking and it's yellow, but only if it's urgent with alert. Let's test that and read that urgent message, and we can see now yellow is gone. It's red, the default red for urgent. Okay, let me unset this message as unread and refresh the page. We'll come back with the default. And now what about the different icon? So here we set the content. We're still using the Oracle font. You can use your own fancy font, whatever you prefer, but overriding the content in the before pseudo class, well, now we have a bell icon using the Oracle font icons. Still doesn't blink or anything. So what next? So now we have a yellow bell. And so here, that's a little bit convoluted, but I'm getting there. Here's the CSS that honestly I picked from the internet, copy pasted it. And so this CSS is defining not only the color, but also the animation. So there's a custom animation, CRM Message Bar Animation. It uses WebKit or non-WebKit, so it supports most browsers, sets the duration, sets a fill mode, and an infinite iteration count, so it goes on forever. So that's part one, defining an animation for the element. Simply adding this here. It doesn't actually change anything because we have to define the keyframes for that animation. So that CRM Message Bar Animation I have here once for WebKit supporting browsers and once for, well, non-WebKit. So this is 2 times the same thing. So this is a keyframe definition, and now, well, okay, it starts moving. So we see the bell is moving slightly, you know, a shaking animation or what you call it. And that is achieved through using the keyframes definition for that animation. Keyframes are defined in % of the animation. At 0%, it's scaled to 1, basically, so it's the same size as before. At 10 and 20%, it shrinks and rotates a little bit. 30, 50, 70, 90, it rotates to the other side, scales up. And there's another rotation, and at 100% at the end of the animation, so it's scaled back to normal. So, and that's again just repeated to support all the browsers using either WebKit or non-WebKit. So if you play around with the degrees, for example, let's make it 30 degrees here. You see, okay, this gets more accentuated. So, and this is pure CSS. There's no JavaScript involved. It's very fast. The browser takes care of all the animations, and the user interface still performs well. And it's very subtle, of course. We're a business application, but you can literally call all bells and whistles here. And it's still for urgent with alert. So it's a alert situation. So again, let's prove if we read the alert message, which is still red, by the way, here. So it goes back to normal. So it's only really taking care of urgent with alert. So let's reload this. And the final CSS I'm adding is the pop-up display. So I just added one rule here to take care of the pop-up to be for urgent with alert to be yellow as well. So here's my full CSS. And you can find a link in the description to GitHub to get that CSS, to get you started with animating and modifying your message broadcast icon. So now if I pop up, the pop-up also shows, well, a very distinct style for the urgent with alert message. It's not just a red, it's, well, okay, you can choose your color, obviously. So there you have it, a custom icon, custom colors, custom animation even. And again, do check out the links in the description for learning more about the CSS animations that I used and to download the example CSS, do whatever you please to learn more about Siebel Open UI. Signing off, thanks much for watching. Take care and bye-bye.